From translation, NIV New International Version, this 136th day of the year, today we are reading passages 2 Chronicles 21-24, 2 Chronicles chapter 21, verses 1 to 20. Then Jehoshaphat rested with his ancestors, and was buried with them in the city of David. His son Jehoram succeeded him as king. Jehoram's brothers, the sons of Jehoshaphat, were Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azariahu, Michael, and Shephatiah. All these were sons of Jehoshaphat king of Israel. Their father had given them many gifts of silver and gold, and articles of value, along with fortified cities in Judah, but he had given the kingdom to Jehoram because he was his firstborn son. When Jehoram established himself firmly over his father's kingdom, he put all his brothers to death with the sword, and also some of the officials of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He followed the ways of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for he married a daughter of Ahab. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Nevertheless, because of the covenant the Lord had made with David, the Lord was not willing to destroy the house of David. He had promised to maintain a lamp for him and his descendants forever. In Jehoram's time, Edom rebelled against Judah and set up its own king. So Jehoram went out with his officers and all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he broke out and escaped by night. To this day Edom has been in rebellion against Judah. Libnah revolted at the same time. Jehoram built high places on the hills of Judah to provoke the anger of the Lord, as the kings of Israel had done. He sent a letter to Elijah the prophet, saying, "May this day be the day the Lord brings you down, you chariots of Israel." The letter said, "This is what the Lord, the God of your father David, says. Because you have not followed the ways of your father Jehoshaphat, or of Asa king of Judah, but have walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and have provoked me to anger with their idols, therefore, for all this the Lord brings on you a great calamity. Your people, your sons, your wives, and all your possessions will be swept away, and you yourself will become very ill with a diseased bowels, until your bowels come out because of the disease, day after day." The Lord stirred up the spirit of the Philistines against Jehoram, and also the spirit of the Arabs who lived near the Cushites. They attacked Judah, invaded it, and carried off all the goods found in the king's palace, along with his sons and wives. Not a son was left to him, except Ahaziah, the youngest. After all this, the Lord afflicted Jehoram with an incurable disease of the bowels. In the course of time, after 2 years, his bowels came out because of the disease, and he died in great pain. His people made no fire in his honor, unlike the previous kings. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He departed with no one's regret and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. 2 Chronicles chapter 22, verses 1 to 9. The people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, Jehoram's youngest son, king in his place, since the raiders who came with the Arabians into the camp had killed all his older sons. So Ahaziah son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 42 years old when he became king of Jerusalem, and he reigned 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, a granddaughter of Omri. He too walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, and did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was related by marriage to the house of Ahab. He worked unfaithfulness against the Lord. Azariah son of Jehoram king of Judah went down to see Jehoram son of Ahab in Jezreel, because he was ill. When the Edomites had rebelled against Judah and made a king over themselves, Jehoram went out with his officers and all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he broke out by night. To this day Libnah has been in rebellion against Judah. That was the time when Ahaziah son of Jehoram king of Judah went down to Jezreel to visit Jehoram son of Ahab, because he had been wounded. Through Ahaziah's visit to Jehoram, God brought about Ahaziah's downfall. When Ahaziah arrived, he went out with Jehoram to meet Jehu son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to destroy the house of Ahab. While Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the officials of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's relatives, who had been attending Ahaziah, and he killed them. Then Jehu went to find Ahaziah, and they captured him while he was hiding in Samaria. He was brought to Jehu and put to death. Ahaziah was then buried, as there were no descendants to carry on the dynasty. The overthrow of Athaliah was the result. 2 Chronicles chapter 23, verses 1 to 21. In the 7th year Jehoiada strengthened himself and made a covenant with the commanders of hundreds. Azariah son of Jehoram, Ishmael son of Jehohanan, Azariahu son of Obed, Maaseiah son of Adiah, and Elishaphat son of Zichri. They went throughout Judah and gathered the Levites from all the towns of Judah, as well as the heads of families from Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. The whole assembly made a covenant with the king at the temple of God. Jehoiada said to them, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord promised concerning the descendants of David. The whole assembly agreed to this, for the people had gathered at the covenant of God to seek him with all their heart. Jehoiada said to them, Bring her out between the guards, and put all men bearing arms around her. Do not let anyone enter the temple of the Lord. The guards, each with weapons in his hand, stood around the king, all the men of Judah and the Levites who had brought the king, while the Levites and all Judah offered sacrifices. The priest Jehoiada brought out the king's son and put the crown on him. He gave him a copy of the covenant and declared him king. They anointed him and clapped their hands and said, Long live the king. Athaliah tore her robes and shouted, Treason, treason. But Jehoiada the priest ordered the commanders of hundreds who were in charge of the troops, Bring her out between the guards and put all men bearing arms around her. Do not let anyone enter the temple of the Lord. The guards, each with his weapon in his hand, surrounded the king. They had all come to the temple of the Lord and were standing there from the new to the old temple, around the king. They brought out the king's son and put the crown on him, and gave him a copy of the covenant. They made him king and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and shouted, Long live the king. Then Athaliah heard the noise made by the guards and the people, and she went to the people at the temple of the Lord. She looked, and there was the king standing by his pillar at the entrance, with the officers and the trumpeters beside the king. All the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets, while the singers with musical instruments were leading the praises. Then Athaliah tore her robes and shouted, Treason, treason. Jehoiada the priest ordered the commanders of hundreds, who were in charge of the troops, Bring her out, do not kill her in the temple of the Lord. So they seized her. And she went into the entrance of the horse gate to the royal palace, and there they put her to death. Jehoiada then made a covenant between himself and the king and the people that they would be the Lord's people. All the people went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They smashed the altars and idols, and they killed Mattan the priest of Baal in front of the altars. Jehoiada appointed the officers of the temple of the Lord, and the Levites, whom David had assigned to the temple of the Lord, to minister before the Lord by offering burnt offerings, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and singing, as David had ordained. He stationed the guards at the gates of the temple of the Lord, so that no one who was ceremonially unclean might enter. He took the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the king down from the temple of the Lord. They went into the palace through the upper gate and seated the king on the royal throne. The whole city of Jerusalem rejoiced, and the city was quiet, because Athaliah had been slain with the sword at the palace. 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verses 1 to 27. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zebiah, she was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada chose a wife for him and gave him 2 wives, and he had sons and daughters. Some time later Joash decided to restore the temple of the Lord. He assembled the priests and Levites and said to them, Go to the towns of Judah and collect the money due annually from all Israel to repair the temple of your God. Do it now. But the Levites did not act at once. Therefore the king summoned Jehoiada the chief priest and said to him, Why haven't you required the Levites to bring in from Judah and Jerusalem the tax imposed by Moses the servant of the Lord, and by the assembly of Israel for the tent of the testimony? Now the sons of that wicked woman Athaliah had broken into the temple of God, and used even its sacred things for the Baal gods. At the king's command, a chest was made, and placed outside the gate of the temple of the Lord. A proclamation went out throughout Judah and Jerusalem that they should bring to the Lord the tax that Moses the servant of God had imposed on Israel in the wilderness. All the officials and all the people brought their contributions gladly, dropping them into the chest until it was full. Whenever the chest was brought in by the Levites to the king's officials, and they saw that there was a large amount of money, the royal secretary and the officer of the chief priest would come and empty the chest and take it and return it to its place. They did this regularly and collected a great amount of money. The king and Jehoiada gave it to those who carried out the work on the temple of the Lord. They hired masons and carpenters to restore the temple of the Lord, and also workers in iron and bronze to repair the temple. The men in charge of the work were diligent, and the repairs progressed under them. They rebuilt the temple of God according to its original design and reinforced it. When they had finished, they brought the remaining money to the king and Jehoiada, and with it they made articles for the temple of the Lord, articles for the service and for the burnt offerings, and also gold and silver articles. And as long as the priest Jehoiada lived, they made burnt offerings to the Lord in the temple of the Lord. Jehoiada was well advanced in years, and had lived a long life after he had married the daughter of King Jehoram, and had become the father of sons and daughters. He was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. He had done good in Israel, serving God and his temple. But after Jehoiada died, the officials of Judah came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and worshipped Asherah poles and idols. Because of their guilt, God's anger came upon Judah and Jerusalem. Although the prophets were sent to them to turn them back to the Lord, the people remained stubborn, as their ancestors had been, who did not believe in the Lord their God. Then the Spirit of God came on Zechariah son of Jehoiada the priest. He stood before the people and said, "This is what God says, why do you disobey the Lord's commands? You will not prosper. Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has forsaken you." But they plotted against him, and by order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. King Joash did not remember the kindness Jehoiada had shown him, but killed Jehoiada's son. As he died, he said, "May the Lord see this and call you to account." At the turn of the year, the army of Aram marched against Joash and invaded Judah and Jerusalem. They carried off all the goods in the king's palace, including his own sons and daughters, and also his treasures. They carried off everything and returned to Damascus. Although the Aramean army had come with only a few men, the Lord delivered into their hands a much larger army. Because Judah had forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, judgment was executed on Joash. After the Arameans left him, wounded, his own officials conspired against him because of the blood of Jehoiada's son. They murdered him on his bed, which was filled with blood. The murderers were Jozabad son of Shimath and Jehozabad son of Shimrith, two of his officials. Joash was buried in the city of David with his ancestors, and Amaziah his son succeeded him. The other events of the reign of Joash, and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? His attendants conspired against him, and murdered him in Beit Millo on the road down to Silla. He was buried with his ancestors in the city of David, and Amaziah his son succeeded him as king.